Our wives go through some serious things, and sometimes their hurt can come into our marriage and cause some challenges. Today, we're going to unpack some of the ways that we as husbands can help our wives through some of these hardships and these times that may be taken away from our marriage and the joy that we have inside of it. Stay tuned and let's go. Welcome to the Husband's Coach's Corner, the podcast that teaches husbands how to love their wife every day and become better men in the process. I'm your host, Chris Scott, aka the Husband Coach. All right, so welcome back to the Husband Coach's Corner. I know I've been gone for quite some time, had some family matters to tend to and some things that I had to deal with. So I do apologize, but I'm back. And today we are going to be looking at something that is extremely important. Now, before we dive too deep into the content, I do have to give my background. As an ordained minister, I truly do believe that marriage is only successful when God is at the center of it. Now, if you're not a believer in Christ, I think you'll be able to get something out of the principles. But until you've given your life over to Christ and have made him the author and leader in your life, you're going to have a really hard time when it comes to marriage, just because we don't understand love in the capacity that God does. So if you are wondering what it means to become a Christian or put your life, your trust in Christ, then please send me an email. We can talk about this. You can listen to the content and hopefully you can gain something from it that you can apply. But I truly don't believe that a marriage can thrive without Christ being in the center of it. Today, we are going to be discussing some very emotional concepts. Now, I get it. Every marriage is going to be in a different location. Everyone has their ups and downs, their challenges. But when we talk about the hurt and the wounds, they typically come from one of two places. Either you caused them or it was caused by something that happened before you even met your wife. Sometimes you don't even know that these wounds exist until it's triggered by something you do or something that someone else does that, is almost out of your control. And unless your wife is open enough to share with you what these things are, you may be getting blindsided. Maybe it's your wedding night and you're looking to, seal the deal, if you will. And your wife, she is not feeling that. And you get upset. You're like, okay, I don't get it. And sex in your marriage is just 100% not working. All right. And come to find out, she has a past of being sexually abused. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable sharing that with you before you guys got married. Whatever the case may be, there are a lot of things that happen in marriage, right? Every relationship is different. What I will say is, you will need to seek clinical help in some of these cases because the hurt is going to go deeper than what you can do alone as a husband. However, I will give you some advice and some characteristics that you can apply so you can be the husband that your wife deserves while she works through some things. And that's the goal of today's episode. It's not to make you, a superhero and you fix your wife's problems, because the truth is you're likely not going to fix those problems, and that's okay. But what you can do is be a support to her while she goes through this, the journey of recovering from this hurt, because sometimes this hurt, it really is deep and it doesn't get solved overnight. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump over to my notes. So the question that I've been asked many times is, how do I deal with this, right? And I've already answered this, but sometimes we like to say that we're going to deal with this by solving the problem. We're not trying to solve the problem here, okay? That I have to be very clear. We are not trying to solve the problem. We're trying to be a part of the solution, but we're not solving the issue, okay? And then the second question that I'm constantly asked whenever a husband is dealing with a wife that's going through hurt is, Will my marriage survive this? And in short, yes, your marriage will absolutely survive the hurt that goes on, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be an easy path depending on how deep the hurt is or who caused the hurt. If you caused it, or if it's something that happened earlier on before you even met your wife, there's a lot of variables in there. But I do believe that your marriage will survive if you put in the work to understand your wife and to walk alongside her, being empathetic. We've talked about this in the past, as opposed to being sympathetic. Okay. And we'll unpack that a little bit in this episode. But if you want to know more about empathy, go ahead and check the description box below. And there's a link to the empathy podcast that I did a while ago. Let's go ahead and jump into one of the things that we need to get right off the bat. And that is making sure that we are understanding the situation. Whatever is going on with your wife, whatever she's going through, if we're not understanding the situation, we are really missing the picture. And you want to make sure that you are truly trying to understand and not solve. Okay. I don't know how else to beat that into this episode than to continuously say it. So I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but the truth is you want to continue to understand, and gaining understanding looks like this. All right. We are sitting down and we're asking, what don't I understand about this situation? And you're asking questions that get her to open up to you. All right. You want her to explain what goes on. And, for a situation where it leads to her withdrawing from you in any capacity. Maybe she doesn't talk to you whenever this hurt comes up. Maybe she doesn't touch you. She doesn't, cook dinner for you, whatever it may be. Say, okay, what don't I understand about this situation? And then you go sit down and you say, hey, I'm not trying to trigger this, right? You want to give her a safe place, but you want to tell her, like, I'm trying to understand what it is that you go through every time that this happens. Why is it that you withdraw from me in this circumstance? What are some of the things that you're thinking when you're going through this? What are some of the things that you're feeling? And let her express that to you. And your job is just to sit there and soak it in and truly gain understanding on what she's going through and what's happening at the time that, she's withdrawing from you. And the goal here is the next time that this happens and she withdraws from you in whatever circumstance or situation, you're not going to get overly upset. It's going to be frustrating. All right. I'm not going to take that away from you. It is going to be frustrating. But what you'll be able to do is say, okay, she's having this going on, and this is what she explained to me is happening the last time when I gained understanding. All right. So that's the goal of gaining understanding. Now, while you're gaining this understanding, you do not need to make her feelings less valid by saying, oh, well, you don't have to think that if that's what she's thinking. Don't do that. Just be quiet. Let her say what it is that she has to say, because one of the greatest things that you can do as a husband is allow your wife to give you feedback and be very candid. The more vulnerable our wives become with us, the more comfortable they become with us, the more they can trust us. And I've already talked about establishing trust in your marriage if you're not familiar with that. But this is how you gain that trust, by being vulnerable or allowing your wife to be vulnerable with you and not making her feelings invalid by saying, oh, don't do that. Don't do this. Just say, oh, okay. And then ask her more questions so you can gain deeper understanding of why she feels that way. And then you can offer up suggestions like, hey, when you feel that way, what else, what about thinking this, right? So now you're not telling her that her feelings are invalid. You're telling her that her feelings don't always have to be that. Maybe she can try something else, and let her take that how she wants. Okay. Now, again, this is one of those reasons why you need a In some cases, you need a clinical, like a licensed counselor. I am not a counselor. I do not have a medical license. I am a marriage coach, and I specifically help husbands learn how to love their wives. All right. There are some psychology things that I've read on, but I haven't studied in depth. So you definitely want someone who has a better background in psychology and the things that will help you with your marriage and help your wife through the challenges that she's facing. So I had to put that disclaimer in there. But the next thing is you want to ask questions in a calm manner. Okay. Don't just blurt out your questions, and you can make her feel invalid when you say them in an aggressive tone. So talk to her. Think about it like this. You want to convey to your wife that you care about what she is going through, and you care about the hurt that she's experiencing whenever she's triggered. Okay. And this could be on anything. So, you can make this very general. You want to be the person who she thinks, and not just thinks, like you want to actually live this, that you care about what's going on with your wife. Okay. So ask them in a calm manner, and that you are a friend, that you're her partner. That's what's going to help you through this challenging time and these circumstances. Now, we've already talked about not going for the solution, so I'm not going to go over that. All right. Don't go for the solution. Now, the next thing is you got to give her some space. Let her breathe. Let her have some time to reflect. Sometimes when the hurt is happening and she withdraws, say, okay, you know what? Especially after you've had the conversation with her, say, you know what? I understand what she's going through. Let me give her some space. Now, when you are gaining understanding and you're asking these questions, you can identify like, hey, when this happens, here's what I'm noticing that you do. When this happens, would you like me to, how would you like me to respond to you? Right? That's going to help her with, and it's going to help you. But that's going to help her with seeing that, one, you are there to help her. And it's going to help you with giving you actions to take. And all you have to do is take those actions the best that you possibly can. So if she says, hey, when this happens, I withdraw from you, and all I want you to do is not talk to me for a little while. Let me have some time to think this through. Then shut up and think it through, and let her think it through. It's not complicated, right? Sometimes the biggest issues in our marriage have the simplest fix. And sometimes this fix is just be quiet. Don't say anything. Now, ask her if giving space while you're gaining understanding, ask her if giving her space is something that she would benefit from, because not every person benefits from getting space. Some people actually think that you are leaving them out to dry when you try to give them space. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is going to be reciprocated well from your wife, or received well from your wife. Okay. Now, the next thing is making yourself available to her. Now, I just said give her space. That doesn't mean go run off into the next room and, turn on the sports game, whatever it may be. Maybe that is go do something that is still within the visibility of your wife, and just let her know that you're available to her, right? And you can even set it up like this. You tell her, hey, when I'm sitting in this chair, like after we've had an argument or an issue, when I'm sitting in this chair, I'm available to you. You can come talk to me, and I'm going to stop anything and everything that I'm doing in that moment. And you have my complete undivided attention. That is going to pay dividends. I leave my office door open. When my office door is closed, that means I'm working on something, I'm doing stuff. And my wife and my kids, they know this, right? It's a visible sign like, hey, my husband or my dad, he's busy right now. Let's leave him alone. And then I open the door. My door stays open a majority of the time. Okay. And when it gets loud, because sometimes it gets loud in my house, I crack the door. Now, cracking the door, that still tells my family, and they know this, that means I'm still available to them. They can come in, they can come ask me, like I'm there for them, right? Uh, However, I'm just signaling to them, hey, you guys are a little too loud. I'm trying to stay focused. I'm trying to, either work on content for these episodes, whatever it may be. So, moral of the story, make sure that you have a visible availability sign that your wife knows. And if you wanted to, you can even get as quirky as putting a I'm available sticker on your chest, and that lets her know that that you are available to her when she needs you. Okay. Now, I do have 4 characteristics that I believe show our wives true love. Okay. The first one is to be approachable. The second one is to be mindful. The third one is graceful. And the fourth one is self-giving. All right. I'm going to repeat those again. Approachable, mindful, graceful, and self-giving. Now, I'm going to do some episodes on all 4 of these things, but this is very specific to how we can show love to our wives. And really, you can apply this to love to your children if that's what you're having challenges with, love to friends and family. In like, these are some very important things. So I'm going to give the cliff notes on what these 4 are, but I want you to kind of think about this as I'm saying them and rationalize it with the way that you treat your wife and say, okay, am I meeting that intent? And it's okay if you disagree with these 4 characteristics, but I do ask that you at least compare them to your character and see if it's a place where you can improve. Because most of the time we disagree with things that typically we just don't want to do. Okay, so the first one, approachable. That comes back to the availability, but are you always aggressive? Being approachable means that someone wants to come talk to you. They want to spend time with you. They want to be in your area and they feel comfortable enough that they can come talk to you. So is that who you are to your wife? Are you someone that she can come talk to? Or are you always pushing her off? Are you always in the office with your door closed? All right. The next one is mindful. Being mindful. Are you existing in the moment with your wife? And let me say it another way. Are you present in the moment with your wife? Are you present in the moment with your children? Are you there? Are you understanding what they're going through, their challenges, their problems, their good times, their ups, their downs? Are you mindful of what's going on, right? Now, when you're gaining understanding of your wife, you may find yourself being mindful in that situation. And that's exactly where you want to be and how you want to be. You want to be present. What it doesn't look like is you scrolling through your cell phone. It doesn't look like you clickety clacketing, as my wife would say, on your computer or your Xbox. It is you giving your undivided attention to your wife. Do you need to improve on that? Because that leads into being approachable. If you're mindful and you're present, then they'll want to approach you because they know that you care, right? There's a quote, I'm probably going to butcher it, but I'll say it anyway. No one cares until they know how much you care. I think that's how it goes. I can't remember who says it. I'll look it up and drop it in the description. So that way you can check it out if you're into that thing. I just wanted to share that. The next one is graceful. This is a very important one, guys. To give grace is to give something that someone does not deserve. Sometimes our wives are going to get on our nerves. Can I just say that? Like, that's just the way it is. We're going to get irritated. She's going to do something that's going to set us off, and we should be patient. And, patience is something that we absolutely need to be with our wives. But I believe patience comes from giving her grace. What if when she sets you off, instead of yelling and screaming and, throwing stuff, whatever it may be, just say, you know what? That's okay. I'll go do whatever the thing was and bring peace into the home, right? We've talked about being the peacemaker in the house, being the leader in the house, giving your wife something that she may not deserve. Sometimes my wife, she just doesn't feel like cooking. Now, I don't want anyone to think like I'm some sort of chauvinistic or evil husband that's like, woman, you better cook me meals. My wife knows that that's not my mentality. But one of the things that my wife enjoys doing is cooking, and she provides a meal for the house every single day. Sometimes she doesn't feel like cooking. So then she says, hey, I don't feel like cooking today. What are we going to do? And I have in that moment two opportunities, right? I could be like, no, I need you to go and cook. Or I could say, you know what? My wife, I'm being approachable and I'm being mindful because I'm understanding she's not feeling that. So I'm going to give her grace and say, hey, you know what? I guess tonight we're just going to go pick up something to eat. Or my family loves it when I do this. I'll cook. I'm kidding. They don't always love it when I do that. But moral of the story is I can give my wife grace in circumstances, especially when she already feels like she's not living up to her end of the responsibilities in the house. So look at that across your home and see where you can be graceful to your wife and give more grace to her. And then the last one is self-giving. Now, this one is actually very important because giving of yourself means that you are going to surrender doing something that you want to do so that your wife is willing to, or for your wife, I'm sorry. So let me restate that. You are going to give up something that you want to do so that you can love your wife. Here's an example. You love to go to the gym, but there's some issues and your wife needs you. And, this workout is so important to you, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to go home instead and I'm going to be there with my wife. I'm going to give her myself because I don't want anyone else to fill this gap, right? We don't want that. But also, when you do this, it gives her the sense that you are willing to give up the things that you really care about. And oftentimes, what happens when I'm being self-giving is my wife is like, no, don't do that. No, don't give that up. But I gladly give up a lot of things that I can love my wife, right? These are characteristics that show my wife that I love her. I could say, baby, I love you. But when I do these four things, she can feel the love. And a feeling is so much more powerful than a saying, right? If I can drive her to an emotion, if I can drive her to feeling loved, then I'm accomplishing what it is that I set out to do, which is to love my wife every single day. So where do you stand in those four things? Because these are the four things that are going to help you with growing or working and dealing with your wife when she is hurting. Okay. She's going to need your grace. She's going to need you to be mindful and approachable because she's going to need someone to come to and be vulnerable with. Are you that guy? Or does she have to go somewhere else to get that? And if she is, then you should be concerned because as her husband, you should be one of the first people that she's willing to run to with her problems, with her challenges, with her situations. But if you're not showing that you even care what your wife is going through, then you're going to find yourself having a hard time dealing with her when she's truly hurt, right? So think that through and do better if you're not doing well. Now, the last piece is, will my marriage survive? Will my marriage survive? And I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic because every marriage that fails is the marriage that each person gave up on the marriage. Now, I can't tell you where your wife is. I can't tell you where you are really, but you know where you are in your marriage. If you're well established in your marriage and you can speak to your wife on a consistent basis, you'll also know where she is. Maybe it's time for you to reach out to her and say, okay, we're in a bad place in our marriage right now. But you know what? In 2 years, in 3 years, whatever it may take, we can be in a better place. Stop living for the short term and focus on the long term, because that's the goal of marriage, is long-term commitment. All right. If you're looking to improve your marriage in 6 weeks or something like that, like it can work that way. I won't say that it won't. It can, but your marriage, you should be looking longer than 6 weeks. It should not be, oh, well, if I can't fix it in 6 weeks, then it's probably not going to be savable. My marriage is not going to work. That is not true. All right. All of the marriages that I've helped coach people through that didn't survive, it happened because they both gave up. That's it. They both gave up. Even in a marriage where the husband was putting in all the effort, the marriage still survived. It took longer for them to overcome some of their challenges and their differences, but they still survived. And when it's flipped the other way around, where the wife is putting in all the effort to restore the marriage and to build the marriage, and the husband is just not putting in his share, right? He's not doing the work to build that marriage. By the time that husband comes around, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later, because you can wear a person out that is constantly trying to build the marriage, but the other person just isn't doing anything to help them. So my encouragement to you is, if you are a husband right now and you're listening to this podcast, and maybe this is the first time that you're coming across some of my content, do yourself a favor and commit right now to love your wife every day and to build your marriage. I guarantee you, when you make that commitment and you are dedicated and you're ready to go, you're going to see the progression and the success in your marriage. Now, if you're a long-time listener, or you've been introduced to my content a few times over, and you're like, okay, Chris, how is this supposed to help me out? I'm not in a bad place in my marriage. I was just trying to figure out, how do I overcome dealing with my wife being hurt, things of that sort. Well, the same commitment goes to you. Maybe it's a renewal of the commitment that I am going to love my wife every day, no matter what, and I'm going to become a better man in the process. Right? The tagline of this show is not some gimmick that it just sounds cute to say or cool to say, whatever. No, the purpose of this tagline is to get you to realize that every day you have to show up for your wife. Every day you have to be approachable, graceful, mindful, and self-giving. And it is not going to be easy. But on the days when it is the hardest, just like the days when you're in the gym and you're struggling the most, those are the days when you're going to progress the most, if you put in the work. But if you say, you know what, this is too hard, you turn your back and walk away, guess what? You just missed out on an opportunity to grow deeper, to go further. And that's a shame. There's men all across the world that are doing exactly that. And my prayer is that none of the men who are consuming this content are doing that. I want to charge you and encourage you to love your wife with every fiber in your body. Not looking for a new wife, not looking for a way out of the marriage, but looking for a way to build the marriage that you and your wife are going to look back on decades from now. A marriage that's going to be a blessing to your children and your grandchildren. That's what I'm talking about. So if that's your mentality and that's where you want to go, then continue listening to this content because that's exactly what I want to encourage men to do. That is my charge to you as a man, as a husband. Now, like always, if you got questions, you can email me at husbandcoach2020 at gmail.com. You can also go over to marriagedrills.com. All this is going to be in the description box below. So you can definitely get in contact with me. And I do have a lot of stuff that I had to put on hold because I was working on some other things and, holidays, all this other stuff. But moral of the story, I got some stuff that is coming that is going to be a true blessing, I believe, to you as a husband and ultimately to your marriage. So please stay tuned and go over to marriagedrills.com, check it out. There's going to be stuff that I post up there as well. Now, if you are listening to this podcast on a platform that allows any sort of liking, subscribing, following, whatever it may be, I'd kindly ask that you do that. Hopefully, it is not of any charge to you and that it's free. But when you do that, it helps tell these platforms to share this content with other people that are potentially looking for the exact same thing. And if you're willing, share it with someone who you think would benefit from this. All right. Now, I know that there are a lot of ladies that also watch this content, and I am more than happy that you ladies are here and sharing the content with your husbands. But please, I ask that you do it in a graceful way, a peaceful way. Don't say, "Hey, listen to this. Look at this guy." That usually doesn't go over well. But if you are going to share it with your husbands, let them know why you're sharing it and let them know in a loving way. So that way they are more open to receiving the message that I'm sharing with them, because I think that it's to both of your benefit for that to be a thing. I offer one-on-one husband coaching sessions, and it's also kind of like a program. I can tell you more about that if you send me an email. We can sit down over a Google Meet and really discuss that, and I'll unpack it for you if that's something you're interested in. All right. So until the next time, I want you guys to find a way to love your wife every day. Peace.